thank you. You are at a legally required meeting. This is something that the process amounts to. Everything we do, everything we've done comes to this meeting so the public has a chance to express, complain, congratulate, or whatever. And so we probably think we want to start with a couple of simple things, like the Martins want to make an announcement, which is helpful. Then we probably want to say the Pledge of Allegiance and maybe ask heaven for a little help, and then we'll get started. So, Dave, Ruth, oh, sorry. The daughter is going to do this.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm David Ruth's daughter. And we have a community event coming up that we were just hoping to take a little advantage of having a lot of our community here. And my dad wrote me a script, so I'm going to go for it. So, has anyone heard of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? On Saturday, February 8th, here at the Hearthside, we will have our very own Ogden Valley's Frozen Hearts Club Band performing at our annual Valentine's Frozen Hearts Ball. The band will cover the greatest love songs ever written. If you're looking for the most dreamy, romantic Valentine's Day imaginable, this will be it, right here, February 8th at 7 p.m. Tickets can be purchased on our website, and if any of you guys would like a flyer, they're just right here on this table in front of this mirror, where it will give you more information. But live music, dancing, good food, prizes, it's a lot of fun. So, anyway, thanks.
Can I have everybody stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd also like to take this moment. Sorry to get up. My family's in the California fire, and they've lost everything. And I think it would be appropriate to say a prayer for the beginning of our city. For us as a collective, I don't know what your denomination is, what religion or anything, but I'd like us all just to take a moment and just say a prayer for going forward with our city, because we love this valley and appreciate everything and everybody. So thank you. Oh, and tell me about this.
You can do this while we pass this around, but this is a newsletter sign-up sheet. Thank you all for being here, and if you'd like more information along the way, if you'll just fill out your name and email address, we'll start the distribution of events and calendars and things that will happen from now on, culminating with an election in November and the swearing in of the city council in January.
If we've already been receiving information, do we need to
Pass it on.
again?
So if we've already got you, we'll keep sending them to you, and we'll just pass them on. So why don't I start over here? Sister Taylor, would you like to say anything? I'd like to say thank you to the sponsors who have been so faithful in this. I mean, some of us... We all kind of got shanghaied into this, and we didn't realize it was going to be 2 and some of us 3 years to get to this point. But it's been interesting. It's been fun. I've learned a lot of new words in the process, and I have no doubt that I'll learn some more. It was probably the most lopsided election in the country this year. I mean, the president's election was like, what, 51-49, and the governor's election was 52-48. And our election up here to incorporate the valley, of the registered voters, it was pretty close to 70-30 in favor of incorporating this little community into a city. I know that's new. It's taken a while to wrap our arms around that, but the election came out to be remarkably favorable to go forward. There's going to be people that have never heard of even the proposal, let alone an election, and the 30% who didn't vote are probably going to be upset and angry. Your voices are welcome here too. This is your town as much as it is anyone else's, and that's why this meeting is required by state law following the election to present a status of where we are, what happened, how it turned out. We'll do that with a much more pleasant voice. Brandy Hammond is going to do that for us. She says she'll probably take 20 or 30 minutes, and then at the end of that, we'll probably reserve another 20 or 30 minutes for any of the questions that you have. So, are we set, team? Are we set, Brandy?
Sure.
I'll get the lights.
Okay, sounds like it's coming through okay. My name is Brandy Hammond. I'm one of the sponsors, and I'm going to walk you through the districts. This is actually the last official function of the sponsored team, and then is what happens is it will turn over to a transition team. Those are not official teams. This is really where the community steps up. Everyone is invited to get involved. So the council and districts for our terms of office, this was on the ballot when you all stepped up to vote. We ended up voting, and I'm going to walk you through that. Louder. You need me to be louder?
Just slide us through that.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So on the agenda, our timeline, we have to have our districts turned in to the county. We've already met with them once and did a map and presented a map. They need to be turned in by January 18th. We will be submitting this map after this meeting, barring anything crazy that somebody brings up here. Our sponsors' responsibilities, again, as I said, this is the end, the last thing that we're officially responsible for. We are proposing 5 districts. I'll walk you through that. I'll walk you through the terms of office for each of those districts and the mayor, and 2025 and beyond. We'll touch on that. I touched on this is our official public hearing, meeting the legal requirements for the sponsors to select the districts. And we'll show you those boundaries shortly. And once the county certifies the districts, we're done. Next. Why don't we hit the next one? Okay, so on the election, everybody on the ballot, there were several forms of government. They were a little confusing. We really appreciate that the community listened to the messaging that was sent out. We ended up with a 6-member council that was voted for. And it was confusing because a 6-member council is really 5 council members and 1 mayor. But the 6-member council has one. The mayor is they're a weak mayor. They don't get to vote unless we have a tie by the council. So we really wanted this. We're focusing very heavily on leaning away from what we feel is old representation, and we didn't have a voice, to getting as many voices as possible spreading that power across the valley. So you'll see how we've distributed districts to accommodate that. So an example would be you have the 5-member council and one of them is sick, or one of them has a conflict of interest and a step down from a vote. That leaves you with 4 people. If you're tied 2 and 2, the mayor would then have a vote. Somebody's saying something online. We don't have 6 districts, we have 5 districts, and that was very confusing. We didn't get to choose the language for the ballot. These were handed, like the forms of government are in the legislation, so we had to follow legislation. We didn't really have an option in how to explain that better. Then,
Just one more. About 90% of the cities in Utah have this form. It's not like we said, let's really get out on the edge. This is the most common form in the state of Utah for city government.
That is correct. So we followed legal advice in pushing in this direction, and we also felt it protected the valley the most. So the 5 council members will be elected from each of these 5 districts that we'll display here shortly. And the 1 council member that is mayor, the mayor is at large, and at large means they can be elected from anywhere in the valley. And we'll go through the terms of each of these positions as well, because we had to select terms because we needed to get those staggering. The mayor is the only position that has to be for 4 years. So that, and we need half of the council to be for 4 years. So we have 3 and 3, and I'll go through that. But the mayor, if you run for mayor, you will have a 4-year term.
Brandy,
Yes.
the 5 council members selected, it will be 1 from each of the 5 districts, right?
Correct. So there'll be 1 council member from each of the 5 districts, so everybody gets representation. That was really important to us, the East Huntsville and Liberty, and everybody had somebody sitting on this council so that Ogden Valley remains Ogden Valley and it doesn't start to turn into a direction that maybe a small group wants, but the rest of the community didn't. There were concerns about the size of the valley. That was an objection we heard. This is our way to make sure that we have representation throughout. So in order to divide the districts, the code states they have to be substantially equal in population. Those population calculations are actually done off of the last Census Bureau study. So the next study will be done in 2030, so we'll address those again, whoever's elected at that time. So for now, we had to try to make them roughly the same population. You're going to see they're very different in size. But we did our best to accommodate and keep everybody as close together as possible and still meet this criteria on population. And we used, there's quite a bit of there in blocks. So when we get the census data, and Craig Hansen here, who's amazing, went through the census data utilizing the blocks. Everything isn't perfect, but it is as tight as we could get it, and still utilizing the blocks and not making some random guesses, because that census data isn't by home. It's in like little chunks, and you'll see that when we show you the map. Next slide. So we did consider traditional communities. We looked at major roads. Because you're electing your neighbors, we push hard to make sure that you had your neighbors with you, but there are, we had to make divisions in some places. So again, it's not perfect, but just think maybe you and the person across the road can both run if you ended up in a position that got divided like that. Next slide. So Craig, again, did all the underlying geographic stuff, and he's here to answer questions too if you have anything. We will post the map. We talked about this. You can play with the maps. You can look at it up close. These maps, because it's so big, it's actually really hard to look at, even on our posters and up here as well. Next slide. So we did have a December open house where we had the maps and went through the districts and walked through this same experience so the community could have input. That's one of the big goals, was for us to always be transparent with what we're doing. Based on some of the feedback, we made small adjustments that we felt we could make with the census block underlying constraints that we had. And that is the presentation you're seeing tonight, are those final districts. So this is what everybody's here for. Okay, so we have our district target for each district was 1,330 people. We have roughly 7,500 people in Ogden Valley. The 2020 census data is what we have. That's our most recent census. And so we have Liberty at the top of the map. The blue is Wolf Creek. The pink is Eden. Green is Middle Fork. And then the yellow is South Fork. The Middle Fork, South Fork pieces were some of the hardest pieces to do because of the way the density is distributed. We have some really funky voting districts now in the same area over there. So we did our best to unite that in a cohesive way to keep communities somewhat connected, but that's probably the one that got the most broken apart, in my opinion. Next one. So South Fork, the yellow at the bottom is 1,226 people. Middle Fork, the green, is 1,398 people. Eden is coming in at 1,344. Liberty, the Liberty piece in purple is 1,330, and Wolf Creek is 1,352. So really tried to stay very tight with our population. Any questions? Go ahead.
I live in Moose Hollow, and I'm just curious, for people who don't live there full-time year-round, were the other people who might live in Salt Lake City that own a condo, were they included in the population that you mentioned?
No, they're counted on the census data in Salt Lake City.
We couldn't hear what she asked.
She asked if somebody has a second home in Moose Hollow, so she lives in Moose Hollow, and she said, if I'm in Moose Hollow, but there's an owner, my neighbor owns a condo, but they live in Salt Lake City, are they counted in this census data, or and to be part of that volume of 4 residents in Wolf Creek? And the answer is no. So if they live out of state, they weren't counted, and if they live in Salt Lake, they would have been counted in the Salt Lake census data. Any other questions?
Randy,
Sorry, go ahead.
Randy, I noticed a note on one of the placards out in the lobby that says that the population is based on the 2020 census. That's 5 years old.
That is the only data we have, and that's what we're required to utilize by state law. So we're sort of stuck with that. The next set of census data will be in 2030, and they'll do it again, and we'll probably get that data about 2032 for the then governing body to make decisions if they want to adjust these due to population. You're going to see variability. I mean, obviously there's areas that have more density and more development going on than others. Some of those are second homes, which wouldn't affect this, but your primary residence growth would. Still, I mean, I don't think over the course of the next 5 years or something, you're going to see more than a 5% shift. So we should still be in a pretty good place overall. There was another question in the very back.
So is this final? I mean, are these boundaries like Lockwood? This is a done deal?
We turn these in, so we're, as a sponsors, this is a public meeting. If there's something really egregious, and we did this once before and we've not run into anything, and we've kind of gone through different scenarios, but if you have anything you want to comment on, like, that's what tonight's for, we'd love to hear it. Yeah, but they're like 80% there. Like, if there was something horrible, we would look at it, but I don't think we have that.
I mean, I've lived in Liberty my whole life and never been considered Eden. And I think most people on our road are pretty upset that we're in the Eden district.
We can call the districts whatever you want. So to be clear,
I don't care what we call them. I just, like, we align more with Liberty than we do with Eden, where we're at. You took like the little sliver along the mountain and then put everybody else in Liberty in the North Fork. And Eden Farms.
Maybe I could just help Randy out a little bit. Thank you very much. That's the purpose and the reason for this meeting, is to tell you what our best guesses are and to receive your input. So don't feel like we're not listening. We just want to present to you our best guesses, and then you're welcome to stay one-on-one, whatever, until you're comfortable we get it. But we're explaining this. We can probably limit the questions, but then we want all your questions.
but I can show you. Let me give you the example. So you're talking Liberty here. Liberty is 1,330, the way we divided it, which is our target. So if you take a population of 7,500 and you have to make 5 districts, so lines have to be drawn somewhere. We put 1,330 people in Liberty, and we put 1,344 in Eden. We did the best we could to keep these balanced, but really the names on here, for however, like, we had to pick names for us to identify them. They'll end up being numbers and not have names attached to them at all. We did this for our own internal tracking, so if it's easier to call it, like, I think the voting districts are like C06 or something, you can look at it that way. There was no offense intended to Liberty.
Yeah, and they're not named. It's not like the Eden District, the South Fork District. They're just county voting district 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's not changing zip codes, it's not changing addresses, it's not changing anything. It's just lumping 1,000 people in each neighborhood. Grant?
And I suggest that we just take the easy Liberty, Middle Fork, South Fork off of there, call it District 1, District 2, District 3, 4, and 5.
And that's
We can absolutely do that.
That's what I'm saying, just take the names off, it's all District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All those in favor? No, you don't.
Honestly, I'm not particularly in favor of numbers, because we've got numbers going every direction. When we talk about our voting districts, we have CFOV, this number, that number, and I feel like it gets kind of confusing. I've always lived in Eden, but none of these places, they only have historical names, they're not real. I've always lived in Eden, I'm Huntsville, Florida, so when I looked at that, it's like, oh, I'm in Huntsville. Well, okay, but I guess I look at it like an elementary school reading group. The purple birds, the blue birds, the red birds, the green birds, the yellow birds.
Hey, Brandy, I don't give a shit less about the names. I think it's the fact that I'm lumped in with a bunch of people in an area that I've got to vote with, that I don't really want them voting on things in my area, because they might not align.
So let me give you the
I don't care about the
alternative.
name.
Let me give you the alternative we were faced with. So we either did 5 voting districts, which put representatives with smaller groups of people, which gave us more people throughout the valley, or we could go to more at-large positions. And an at-large position meant they could be from anywhere in the valley. So we could have said, we're going to do 2 districts and 3 at-large people and an at-large mayor. Then you could vote with your neighbors, every neighbor that you felt you aligned with, but then we would have more people that could come from anywhere in the valley. So there's an exchange that happens between, do we want more districts, or do we want to not draw a line anywhere because you feel like you like somebody more, that you connect more with somebody farther north. You can still support their campaign. You can still tell your friends to vote for them. Like, there isn't a perfect answer here. We really did what we felt would be the best future for Ogden Valley. Otherwise, you end up with, when you go to at-large, we could end up with a very high density of people running. Because the other thing is, like, not everybody wants to run for office. We're asking our community members to step up, do this for free, and we need it to be as local as we possibly can. So while I do hear where you're coming from, and I feel for that, we took it all in, and like, this was the best that we felt with the commitment we made to the community by taking on incorporation.
So where's Nordic Valley? Because I don't want to be associated with Nordic Valley whatsoever. But
Can we take that offline just so I can get through the rest of the presentation? And it is on the maps, so I'm happy to talk with you about that after this.
I think you guys did an exceptional job of creating very equivalent geographic areas, so a nice distribution of the population. Thank you very much.
We really did try. Like, we wanted to keep representation across this valley. It was very important to us. So terms of office, we tried to keep this very simple as well. There was no way to make it perfect. So everything is a work in progress, but mayor is 4 years by law, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting. Then we went in alphabetical order. Like, how do we pick who gets a 2-year term and who gets a 4-year term? So we have elections every 2 years. And you want to keep your council turning over. And so we have 3 turning 1 year and 3 with the mayor on the other voting year. So we have designed, and in alphabetical order, Eden was 2 years, and I don't remember, Liberty was 4 years, then we had Middle Fork at 2 years, then we had South Fork area at 4 years, and Wolf Creek at 2 years. So those people interested in running for office in these areas, those will be your initial terms of office. Obviously, if you're elected on a 2-year term, you can run again. And there's, that's our plan.
But they are the initial terms.
Yeah.
After those elections, then they're on 4-year terms.
Yes.
It's just that they can't, because it's the first one, they don't want everybody to come on and go off at the same time for the rest of eternity. So it's 2 years, then 4 years for everybody from then on.
Next slide. Next slide. What's next? Candidate filing, so June 2nd through 5th for those who would like to run for office of 2026.
No.
Oh, sorry, 2025, that's wrong. Yeah.
Erase.
Yeah, so everything's at 2025 on here, with the exception of take office. So this year, we're now in 2025, we've made it to here. We do really hope that those candidates that are thinking about running, you'll have more announcements come out. We have a really great crew that's working on the transition. There'll be training for candidates and a whole bunch of other workshops that we're doing. We're working on a transition team, so you'll have people assigned to roads, you'll have people assigned to codes and ordinances. Everything at the end of the day, though, is up to the newly elected officials. We're hoping if you're planning on running for office, you will step up and participate in some of these committees that are involved with transition. We do have forms available tonight to sign up for that. As we keep going, we'll do another open house, I think in February, to start those committees for the transition. And again, tools, and we'll have opportunities. We're reaching out to other communities. The League of Cities and Towns can now step in and help us. So there's a lot of resources that we're putting together, and there were several parties that were involved in the incorporation process that we utilized. They're stepping up to help us as well. So as this new crew steps up to run for office, we'll be getting everybody trained so they know how to run a government, and then have also interviewed with these other communities that have gone through incorporation recently. Next. Volunteer opportunities, also January 22nd, CFOV is doing a volunteer fair. We'll have a booth there, so if you have questions, that'll be staffed by all the wonderful volunteers that have worked on this, so feel free to come up and ask questions if you don't get a chance to tonight. And now it's your turn. I think so everybody can hear. The sponsors will answer questions, but if you want to come up, or we can run the microphones through the audience, either works.
The city name.
We've covered this before, so the community will have the opportunity to vote. Oh, he asked what is the city's name going to be? It is filed as Ogden Valley. In the future, however, the community can vote for a new name, so that's entirely up to us.
Brandy, in terms of the council terms, 2 years and 4 years, is it by law that the first 3 are 2 years only, and then the next and 2 or 4 years, or can you flip that? Because it seems like for continuity's sake and for expertise that needs to be gathered, it would be better to have 2 people go off after 2 years, and then 3 people go off after 4 years.
So the mayor's the 4-year, and then we have, you're right, we have 2, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because it just seems like it would make more sense, particularly if the mayor is really not a participant in terms of the voting normally.
We'll research that, and we'll post an answer to that. I don't know the
Thank you.
answer.
Questions from the floor? Just raise your hand, we'll pass the microphone back.
I guess I got a question. Are there term limits on any of the?
We have not. I don't know. We don't know. There are not. No. So run forever and ever and ever if you're free.
The council is free to set term limits once it comes into existence.
So what happens if, for some reason, this thing turns out to be a total disaster, roads aren't getting maintained or plowed, and the property taxes double? Can we then have a vote to unincorporate?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things is we can actually do a referendum to unincorporate. So, yeah, we have that ability as a community.
I don't know what could happen, but
Anything
something
could
could
happen.
happen.
Yeah, but
Does anyone have an accurate account on how many times Huntsville Town has done that?
Only once, I think.
They've only disincorporated once and then started again. So we got precedent, we're cool, but.
It was a long time ago too. I think they've been reincorporated for quite a
I'm hopeful it's gonna be better.
Yeah.
So my concern is, who's gonna pay for the fire department?
Oh, we are.
Who's gonna,
That's good.
wait a minute, let me finish. Who's gonna pay for all of our water system, the employees that are in there? And who's, I lost this third one.
You'll get to it. I'll mumble and then you'll get to it. So let me talk to you about existing services. The most expensive service in Utah is schools. Where's my dear wife? Served on the school board in this district and served on the school board in the state. Stand up, sweetheart. Tell them how much of each of our tax dollars goes to the school. Go ahead.
The biggest portion.
More than 51% of every tax dollar goes to the schools in Utah. The rest of your tax dollar gets allocated over expenses, usually called districts. Like Weber School District gets funded by everybody in Weber. Weber Fire District gets funded by everybody in Weber. The fire district was all here earlier, 3 hours ago, and they were delighted because they said, tell your people that doesn't cost them any more. There's no city bills from a district services.
So what if they decide they want to do that and charge us separate?
They can. They're in county service and county district.
Yeah, oh, very much. It's a district.
Water is private.
And the water is private. I mean, I've had a lot of people the past couple of years say, how many different water companies are there, and how come everybody's bill is different? And there's questions that we need answered to, but there was no way to get somebody's neck in the noose to give you an answer. Because right now they're all independently owned water companies. Wolf Creek provides your water, South Fork provides your water, Huntsville provides your, and they bill you. And if you're like me and nobody wanted me, you have to put in a well, and you have to pay for that yourself. But that's the way water companies work. I did get a nice comment from Utah Power and Light called today and said, as soon as your city is up and running, if you'll just pass an ordinance, we will take the sales tax from everybody's bill and send it directly to your city for you. You just have to pass an ordinance and they provide that services. But I say, well, why haven't you done that before? And they said, because it's only for cities. All of those bills have gone to the state before. Now it can be passed through to the city. Let me just try and explain generally, because you're going to have questions forever. The executive authority in Utah's Constitution starts with the state, the governor, and passes through to the cities. That's the intentional design.
So am I still going to be able to shoot my rifle out my back door?
Yes.
No, you can't now.
As long as you don't point it at me. So.
Yes, I can.
The executive authority passes from the state to the cities. If there is no city, the geographical area is administered by the county. That's the situation we've been in, mostly unhappily for the past few years. And I think the motivation for the incorporation was to decide those things for ourselves and that executive authority. So administrative authority will still be with the county. From the wall. We can bring you the microphone or you can yell. Just don't throw anything.
Well, I'm good at yelling. But it seems to me there's another way that you could divide the districts up from an existing database. So I'm going to first ask you a question. If the way that you set this up is only based on the registered voters in the area, Population census.
Residents, population, not voters.
Okay. There is another database that you could look at, which is property owners. That's an existing database in the county of Cleveland. And you could have set it up in that manner as well, to be able to split it up.
Not by law.
Yeah, the county has to utilize the census database to calculate that population, and we had to follow the same guidelines.
All right.
I know it's frustrating because as much as we all love realtors, they own the legislature. They own the legislature, and so they frequently introduce laws that change dramatically. Like we're under an old law that we filed under 3 years ago that doesn't have any effect except on us because the legislature changed the law last year. And so now when we have to do in this window, these are the rules we're under now. Question?
So I'm the president of Wolf Lodge, and we probably have about 35, 40 people who live there year-round. I can well imagine that the other 100 people who own properties there are going to be a little annoyed that they're not being represented. They're going to be taxed by this entity, but they won't be represented as a function of population.
It's only your primary residence. That's second home ownership here, so that's, they don't. But they do get representation through your HOA, which is where they should put that. And then if you guys want to vote differently in the community, you can to support the rest of their opinions. But you get to vote where you live.
Yeah, if I can help my friend here. That's the status quo before incorporation because those same people don't get to vote for the county commissioners. So they're getting taxed by the county, but they're not voting for the commissioners. So it's really the full-time population, which ironically the census includes children as well. It's just the population data that controls these divisions. Voters are different. The county divides it into precincts, which are just administrative voting districts.
Thanks for the clarification. Questions? Keep them coming. 3, 2, 1, I'll go home. No, please.
You told me before this meeting, I'm looking at on the South Fork, and you can see that it's 3, looks like separate areas. The only one divided. The last one you pointed to, I think, is Radford Hills.
Correct, in Crimson Ridge.
And I can't find a more incongruous group than the bottom right, the Flatlanders. 2 groups that are... I'm a Flatlander, and I don't know, it just doesn't seem that you'd think that you could take that group, put them up with some of the green, take some of the green, put it down in yellow, make them more centralized than spread out, especially that yellow group.
Legitimate question, and I'll get back to you. But if we just move a neighborhood down here and call it Harbor View, would you be happier? It's difficult, I understand.
But the thing you had mentioned is that this is not set in stone, and you're not going to turn it in until
this meeting.
So
you said that you wouldn't turn it in until
after this meeting.
After this meeting.
But it's not set in stone yet, right?
No, but we would like to be there. And so here's why. I saw the same problem you did, and I agree with you. I think there's an incongruence, like the congruence between those 2 groups is hard to hit. But when we started shifting everything else, because the population density in South Fork, we couldn't, when everything we moved, all of the other alternatives felt worse. So we were like, how do we overcome this? And it was the best of bad solutions.
You go north of...
Even though it looks like it's a big area, because it's population-based and they're in blocks of census blocks. So not only am I limited by population, I had to take a block of census data because I can't chop one in half because I didn't know I can't determine where the houses are. right? So where's the population? What's a primary residence? What's a secondary residence? So we have to deal with blocks that underlie this data, and then on top of that, we're dealing with population, right? And so we had really weird, random, because Craig and I, we all sat there at night trying to figure it out, but we'd end up with like a weird random chunk. So now you're like, oh, we took this chunk out, but now this whole thing doesn't work. And so we had to like shift everything, and we did it. And then we ended up with really weird road divisions that were going on over here that were like, this isn't better either. So everything created another problem. So we really did the best we could. You're welcome to look. We'll put the maps online. There's underlying census data you can play with. But
And Mr. Hansen said that we could try some adjustments and submit. The other question I have is if one of the council members dies or is assassinated.
Already, I don't know the answer to that.
Mike's address and phone number is, the state law requires everybody to jump through those same hoops. We're not changing anything there. Greg.
So I understand, and here's where everybody's upset. Do like Grant said, let's get rid of the names. Because the people that's lived in this valley forever and ever and ever, it's been Huntsville, Eden, and Liberty, and everybody fought, which I don't know why, because God loves all of us. What religion you are or what, no, God loves you all.
Believe that, go to a basketball game.
But, well, exactly, no, it's your actions or the other person's actions. It wasn't God. God still loved you. So let's get over this Eden, Liberty, Huntsville deal. What the problem is here, like everybody that I can read from this is like they're saying, okay, Radford Hills, snobby people. I'm just
Just say we're the person we love.
Exactly. If you all work together, and this is what they're trying to say, we're not going to get representation in our district because these people are, there's more people live right here than in the flatland. So in the vote, that's what they're trying to explain, right? Am I possible different views? Yeah, your views in your vote.
Communities in sections that are.
That's what he's trying to say, and that's what Matt was trying to say too. Matt's trying to say, I've been in Liberty, but the county started this in our own government because if you get mail from the census, you live in Liberty, but it says Eden on your mail. But it's delivered.
All right, then by show of hands, let's see if I can make it easy. I'll ask the question, how many would like us to re-identify the voting districts by number? How many would rather have us identify the voting district by name? I'll get one more question, then I'll ask you to vote.
Just we have too many numbers, CFO 3. So I just
Okay.
pull the numbers really quick on this. I just want to answer this question. So this chunk is 151, and then the rest of this is everybody else. So I don't know that there's an imbalance with that. So
What do you mean?
151 voters.
Out of like So when we play with this, we really try to be conscientious of all this. So if anything, they're probably getting the stick. Yeah.
One question, Pam.
And get a mic if you can. Oh, yes. I'm really loud voice, you guys.
I think we've only got one.
And this gentleman.
Would you bring it back up, Kate?
This gentleman.
We have a question in the back with a microphone. Fire away.
So it may not be the right forum. I'm new to the area. I did vote for the incorporation. The incorporation doesn't take place until 1st of 26. In the interim, and I live out by Nordic Ski Resort. In the interim, it felt like Weber County was forced or pushing this thing through, even though this incorporation had been voted for to move forward with that development. That's just my personal opinion. But as I looked at that development plan, and I understand some of it's going to be second home, but if you theorize and say there's going to be full housing there, that corner is going to have about 1,000 plus people. plus however many cars that go along with it. I just wonder, is there a plan that's going to show all the road development that's going to take place? Because it just seemed to me like this thing was coming fast and furious, even though the people of the valley have voted that we want to incorporate. I just didn't know if there was any way to put a little pause on this and get this thing better understood and maybe even modified.
A very good question, and I can just tell you candidly, the sponsors unanimously after the election sent that request to the county and said, can you just pause this? They've never listened to us before. I'm not sure they'll listen to us now, but we felt the same way that you did and you do, and we asked. We'll see what happens. Follow up?
So is there any consideration of legal action?
I don't want to lose my house because I'm the only sponsor. Nobody else wants to lose their house.
As a community coming, do we have legal counsel in place, or will we?
Absolutely. Once we are an entity,
Not until the first of the year.
we don't have an entity until you elect somebody, because I appointed myself. And right now, I'm the entity. Once you get elected, fire away. My lawyer number is 106 with the Utah Bar. No. Question.
I just have a procedural question. You mentioned that the sponsor's responsibility stops tonight, but then you also mentioned that there's going to be a lot of work on the road committees, all these different subcommittees. Who's going to manage that effort? Like, how is that going to be organized? Okay.
Can I speak? Oh, God. I'm not sure we're in good
No.
Katie, you want to try and answer that?
I'm Kay Hoagland, don't blame me. Now, many of the volunteers who've already worked on incorporation for months, if not years, have been starting to work on that transition, even to the matter, they started 2 months before the election, which is darn impressive. That work continues. We were interviewing other cities who have recently gone through this. The League of Cities and Towns is helping us. And we have a big sheet with things you might be interested in so you can volunteer. And if you have any thought of being a candidate, this is a golden opportunity to get a master's degree in municipal management and finance. There's roles for everyone. It will take us a little while. We're still doing research, but all are welcome. Who's the next question? Who wants to sign up as a volunteer? Oh dear. Watch
Just as a matter of clarification, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's wondering this. In regards to the services, you did mention about the fire and police, but from a very practical perspective, who is going to be plowing the roads? Is that still also part of the Weber County services?
The state plows the state roads. The county plows the county roads. Right now, they're all county roads, so that's the division as it's been forever. When the city stands up, if the city claims roads, builds roads, develops roads, they're going to have to figure that out and either pay the state, pay the county, or do it themselves. Straight up answer.
Final question.
Okay.
Has future development, or was future development that is currently in the works that we know have been submitted to the county, were they included in potential, what would happen down the line? You're going to end up with certain areas like Wolf Creek or whatever, that will be much more developed than, let's say, Middle Fork area because of the future development that's coming in, which would mean you would end up having more people down the line that would have more primary homes and so on and so forth. So I don't know, was any of that included in the thought by dividing up
The state law assumes a continued growth, and so they base the voting districts on the census. So they change them every census at the minimum, and it reflects an equal number. So just because they're dense, they might be smaller, but not more powerful. Does that make sense? At least that's the way they explain it.
So you're saying it will be adjusted after 2030 census?
Of course.
There we go.
Let me just do it one more time. It will be adjusted every census. Okay? Here's a question.
I think the thing that everybody's missing is all of those colors up there are part of one city. You're just electing a council member from those areas. You still have to get 3 council members to agree to things, to make things happen. So Middle Fork and South Fork are gonna have things that are aligned. Eden, so you're voting for a member to represent you, but there's 3 other areas that you still have to get aligned with what you want before something's gonna happen. So I think we're losing sight of the big picture of this. We're all in this together, and it's those representatives that then work together with the other representatives to make sure that we represent everybody in the valley.
Absolutely. I got one question up here on the front, Kate, before you pass the mic. I got that one right, so I don't have to do
Sure,
it.
if you're talking about census tract, where basically we have the census information. I worked in economic development and I worked with the census tract. We have information from 2023. It says poverty, percentage, population, all that. So I don't know if it was
We have a discussion going. Let's have a question.
So my question is about the Nordic Village. With the county passing all that and, dumping a bunch of money into that area, we're going to be flooded with a lot of people. Who's responsible? So can the county flood that area and then say, well, if there's road problems, is that our problem or is that the county's problem? Because I could tell you that when Nordic has like a big event and they park, it's like a huge fire hazard. The roads aren't equipped for all that traffic. So do you know, is there a plan to upgrade a lot of the roads around that area? Or, how does that work? Did they opt out? Are they part of the county or are they part of our city?
They're included in the new city. All of the Valley Floor people are included in the new city.
So all of that the new Nordic Village we will
In
get that
the
tax
new
revenue.
city.
So
Everybody to the fire line, everybody to the federal forest is in the new city.
So who's responsible for making the roads bigger and safer?
Unfortunately, the legislatures control the law, and they will mostly be controlled by developers who want to do stuff, so they can change it as they want.
But are we responsible to pay for it?
Who's responsible to pay for it?
That's the question.
That's a long conversation. I'm glad we have it with you.
So I'll chime into this. There's a master plan that was approved by Weber County Commissioners. I don't know the current status of that. When a developer comes in, this is one of the reasons we incorporated, so whatever the county negotiated with that developer, however, in the future, if a developer comes and says, hey, I want to do X, Y, Z, we can say, these are the requirements that we have in order for you to accomplish that. Or maybe we don't want to do that, we want to modify it differently. We're inheriting a whole bunch of master plans that are already out there. So whatever is located in those documents, we will deal with as a community. We don't have a lot of control over that. And so we are a city in January of next year.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. We are inheriting a long-term issue, and it will take really smart people, involved people, you people, and your friends to figure it out. Don't get anybody as old as I am.
We charge them, that's plain and simple. You have to give it away.
Yeah.
Charge the money.
Question here.
Say there's a meeting on the 10th, if you want to join with Zoom about that Nordic Valley development, where they're talking about those kinds of things. And you should call and get your
The county's bound by the law, same as we are and everybody else, so they'll probably have public meetings and invite your participation. Question here? That was your question? Okay, go ahead. Okay.
No, that was my comment. It's definitely an issue, but there's a meeting at 8 p.m. Friday. So if you need that information, you can come to me. I can forward you the email. I'm wondering also, Brandy and powers that be, are there ways, once we're incorporated regarding the road issues, are there ways to make that painful on the developers to limit cars on roads and put in ordinances that will pump the brakes on people desiring to do things? Do you know what I'm saying? That we'll have newfound powers.
I'll give you a shot on that. I know what you're saying. And last year, the legislature, Senate, passed a law to the House that they didn't approve. But last year, they submitted Senate Bill 252 that said Ogden Valley can't incorporate. Flat out.
And then that could come again, there's potential.
Yes. And they are the legislatures, they create the law. But we got through that, and because there's two houses up here, a Senate and a House, the House never even took it up for consideration.
And if I can chime in, some of the volunteers we're seeking to recruit are to be watchdogs for the state legislature that's coming up very soon. So don't hesitate if you're interested to keep track of what's happening there and going down to Salt Lake and talking to people.
And Peggy, just direct to your question, a master plan that's in place, we don't necessarily have a lot of ability to go change. However, we are 100% in control of our ordinances going forward, so long as they align with state law. That is why we're here today, so we can change those and do as, but like, to be clear, it's not the sponsors doing that. It's this community and who you elect to run to do that.
Yes. All right, it's 6:55. Those of you that would like to leave after Court asks a question, please get up and walk out. Those of you who want to stay and make sure we get what you're saying, just come up and grab a sponsor, because we'll be getting together to figure this all out.
Can I make
one more than you?
One comment, and it's a comment, so I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you very, very much for all the work you people have done. Talk about transparency. So fortunate to have people of your ability, your desire to make things better, that I just feel like this valley once again is being blessed, and we truly do live in a very special part of the world, and it's because of people just like you and this great valley. Thank you.
It's been a lot of work, and it's nice to hear that because we mostly get the other side of that. So I don't know if you know the time that everybody put into this, but we've given up hours of our lives. And so thank you for the support. Thank you for voting for it. I think that is probably the most important part, because when that election came up and we're all sitting there on pins and needles all night, like, did we do the right thing? Is this even something this community wanted? When it came through as an astounding yes, it made it all worth it. But there were definitely moments where, like, what are we doing? Like, is this even worth it? So it's nice to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Court, your last one.
Thank you. And I would, tell me your name.
Alan.
Alan? That's what I was just going to say. Alan, I absolutely loved what you just said. I second it. I hope in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the road, we look back at what we have done here and just go, oh, yes, look at what, almost a pioneering type thing to break away, to make our own city, and 20, 50 years down the road, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren look back and go, thank you for having the guts and the backbone and the time out of your own busy life to step up and do something such as this. So thank you, thank you. The one thought is, and I know this is very, very elementary, but how much of the taxes do we pay up here in comparison to all of Weber County? Do you know? Yes. How much?
It's like 1.7%.
Shonda does. She can give you her best
So-
guess.
What was your question? How much of the total tax in Weber County do we pay?
Yeah, from this whole valley business.
We're like, okay, I think, if Craig correct me, I think we're 9%. We're like 9% of the tax.
Okay.
Taxable value.
9% of the taxable value, and we're like 3% of the vote.
Okay, so 10, 13, 15%. So wouldn't it
No,
be
no,
fair?
no. We're 9% of the taxable value, 3% of the
Oh, the population.
Of the
Thank you.
population.
So let's say I'm just gonna use 10. Wouldn't there be something in there to say, okay, Weber County, for the last umpteen years, we've been paying 10%.
Oh, dude, we're on that. Okay, so there's
3% of everything to keep Weber County going. So 1 in 10, we would love to have 1 out of your 10 plow trucks up here. We'd love to have
No, that won't work, but I'll tell you what we are trying to do. So we can like have contracts with them to come work for us. We are now our own entity. However, over the last however many years, we have been accounted for, and if you go look at the Weber County budget, which is published every single year, on the budget it shows you under your municipal services tax, which shows up on your tax bill, those are the taxes we've been paying. In addition to that, all the other monies the county gets for us, including road funds and sales tax and all the other sources of income for us, show up in there. We're there with West Weber, so we're in there together, but we are 55% of that revenue. So what is piled up in there is about $6.5 million today, that we estimate roughly $3.6 million is due to either like monies that we receive from the state for us. So we are working on getting that money. So that is one of the things that we have to work with the commission. There's no law that requires them to pay us. So it's really important that we have a good relationship with them, and we handle this very professionally, because those are dollars that we could use to really run our city very, very well from day one. So those funds are sitting there. So we may ask for your support in signing petitions and other elements. There's tools that we can use if they're not cooperating in that, but that is money that we hope
Brandy,
to get.
thank you. One last point. I know of so many homes out here that are second homes, but after COVID, bless their hearts, they came up here, they lived for a while, and now that home is being counted as a primary residence, and we know primary residents pay far less taxes than a secondary home. And if we were maybe do a little more due diligence to all the secondary homes that are paying primary taxes, wouldn't that also be a little extra, a couple pennies in there?
So if they're a secondary home, we actually make more money. If they're a primary residence, they get a 45% discount. So yeah, everything gets better when we go small. So you end up, I mean, Shannon is the county clerk, or the town clerk for Huntsville, right? She's amazing. And all of a sudden you start knowing who your neighbor is, and you know who lives there. You know if it's a primary residence or a secondary home. I think we'll get far more efficient. And walking through with these other municipalities, there's other places that we can save money. Like sometimes they have a tax district drawn wrong, and they're not even paying sales tax to the right entities. So we're going to have a lot of good come out of this, and we're so small and we're so connected. I think we're only going to have benefit from that. But yeah, so benefit.
Brandy, Mark, and everyone else, a huge, huge thank you. 50 years down the road, we are going to look back and absolutely love what has transpired. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming. You're all excused. If you want to talk to us individually, come on up, but you're all excused. Thank you so much.